So these are the new rules of music networking. And, some of these are things that have been networking ideas for a while, but coming out of a pandemic or a gap, if you've had a gap in your career, because this could be applicable even if you've just haven't been doing music for a while, that things have changed. So, one, many pros have moved on. So, those club bookers that you used to have a great relationship with, they may not be there anymore. I've seen this happen a lot. I've seen this happen multiple times. And in fact, I was talking to somebody recently that just said, yeah, they keep changing. I don't even know who works there anymore. And it's, people that they used to have really strong relationships with. Number two, others will be swamped. So if the venue had been waiting around, working with a skeleton crew, understanding what restrictions and things would be, there might be a sudden influx of work and then figuring out who's going to handle it and restaff it. So have some patience, but also it might mean that you need to be aggressive with following up. Number three, do the legwork. Spend some time figuring some of this stuff out, reassessing the venue situation, or just the industry professionals in your area, because it's not just about booking gigs, but if you're ramping up your music career, things might have changed, whether it's the press contacts, organizations. The music industry is one of those places where there's been a lot of turnover. Number four, keep emails even shorter. This plays into number two, but tell them how you can help, what you can offer, and what you're looking for, and then get out. Don't give them this. If there's multiple paragraphs, you're doing it wrong. So let's just say that. If there's multiple paragraphs, you're doing it wrong. A couple sentences, and also doing the legwork, check the venue's websites because they have calendars and do that. That's what we mean by doing legwork. But keep the emails shorter and say, hey, I see a gig. You have an open date, this date. I can fill it. I can bring this many people. Let's make it happen. Number five, be even more persistent because, like I said, being aggressive, you're going to need to follow up. They're probably overwhelmed, and maybe offer to help. If you have some time and you can help them and you have a history of playing successful shows in your area, maybe you can pitch in and help and provide a little assistance that earns you some goodwill. Number six, ask other artists for help. This is the best time to team up with people in your scene and start to put together bills of like, hey, go to the venue with a package ready to go. We've got these three artists together. We estimate we'll get X amount of tickets sold, and our audience loves beer. So you're going to sell so much alcohol. That's how position yourself in a way that does the work for them. And number seven, update your contact sheet. This is going to be very important because there has been a lot of turnover. Venues have gone out of business. Maybe the venue's still there and it seems like it's the same venue, but it has new ownership. Find out. And this is where you can also ask other artists for help. And like, hey, do you know who's booking here now and what the situation is? Because, there's venues here in Portland where we are that are still there, but I'm sure none of the staff are the same. And it may not even be the same owner. Number eight, look for alternative venues. This is something I've noticed during the pandemic that has been an interesting development, at least where I am. I'm in a small town outside of Portland, Oregon. We have our own like little classic downtown, and we have a lot of tap rooms and breweries and places that never had music. But during the pandemic, when restaurants started opening back up, they started having live music and have actually turned into legitimate venues. And they just used it as a sort of a draw to get people out, but now have turned into legit venues doing really great things. So alternative venues may have popped up. And that could also be other organizations and such that you haven't thought of. Number nine, be ready for last minute offers. And we'll get to another section in a minute about getting the dust off and get the rust off of your performances. We'll talk about that in a minute, but be ready because right now, if a venue is going, okay, all the mandates are gone, we can get back to normal. What are we going to do for Friday? Well, if you're ready, you might get a last minute gig. Chris, what do you have to add about all of that?
Well, I don't have any other items to add, but I will put emphasis on the alternative venues, not just because it's super probably necessary to get gigs right now, but also in my experience, those have been the most fun gigs generally that I ever have. Like when I think back on some of my favorite gigs, they've been in bookstores and in art studios and like wineries and places you don't really think of as like, it's not the cool rock club. I've had good gigs at those places too, but my most Memorable gigs where I felt like I was doing something special and had a real connection with the audience. I think that's one benefit of alternative venues. The other thing is that you generally find that the owners of these spaces are psyched to have you there. It's like they're not burdened by loud bands 7 nights a week. It's like you might be the only thing they have there all season. So it's an event, they're excited, they get their customers or whatever involved, and really for them it may be an extra 4 or 5 hours of work to stay late one night. And so they're happy to have you there. That sort of takes some of that weird pressure off of you as an artist that you feel when you go into a really prestigious music venue and you're like, I got to pack this place out. I got to sell a bunch of booze. The ticket should be $25. There's just a lot of overhead type pressure with traditional venues, and alternative venues just, in my experience, just take a lot of that off the plate so you can really just be present in your performance. So that's what I would say about that. And then I think I mentioned this earlier in the episode, but like as you're rebuilding your network and you make a new spreadsheet and you're asking friends and you're doing the legwork to find the contact, I have a feeling a lot of musicians are going to start to get pretty bitter about having to redo work that they felt like they paid their dues. I paid my dues, man. I shouldn't have to pay them again. And like, okay, cool. But what's that going to get you besides just a wall of bitterness? Like at some point, it's like the whole world went through this. We're all kind of in the same boat. So whatever you have to do to like kick yourself out of that little pit of resentment and just get back to work. And yeah, maybe you have to pay some dues that you already paid, but oh well, that's where we're at.
Yeah, one point that you made that was really great about the alternative venues, like those places I mentioned that I've seen in my town here start having music. It has only been on Thursday and Friday night, and it's like they're super excited about it. They're promoting the artist. They're ready and willing to help in any way they can. I don't know what all their financial structures with artists have been. There have been cover charges or there has been just music there, but they're getting quality enough that I'm sure they're compensating those artists at some level. I'm not exactly sure. But the thing is, those establishments only having music 2 nights means, like you said, they're not like, here comes another dumb band who's gonna want everything and complain about the green room. And it's just like that's not the situation here. They're super excited. And so that's been something that I've really noticed during the pandemic. Like, oh, this is interesting because venues were shut down for so long, especially in the part of the United States I'm at. They were shut down for over a year, like shut, nothing. And so restaurants started seeing an opportunity to enhance the experience there, and it's been interesting to see. Yeah, so lots of good things to think about there. The last minute offers one is one that's I think going to be important, that if you start putting out feelers, you might be offered something like, "Hey, we've got an opening tomorrow. Can you fill it?" You'd be like, "Oh, well." So be ready.
Yeah, and that
Be
happened to
ready.
me last summer. The first time we thought the pandemic was completely over, I ended up getting tons of sort of last minute offers out of the blue for all these summer festivals and parades and stuff. And it almost became a problem for me to I had too many options and I had to start being careful about turning things down because I didn't want to dilute my audience or whatever. But be ready.